Hey everyone, this is Jorge Contreras. If you want to learn how to use your small axe to build an empire, you should be listening to the Small Axe podcast with my good friend, Nico.
Hey guys, it's your boy Nico here from the Small Axe Podcast. I want to show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. You see, not everybody begins their investing career with millions of dollars, a huge network of investors, or the knowledge necessary to become successful in this space, and that's okay. What I focus on here on this podcast is helping you hone your skills, sharpen your tools to become the best investor that you can be. Now, I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy this show. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me or the guest, feel free to do so. Love you guys. All right. Hey, Small Axe community. It is me, Nico, and I'm hanging out with somebody that you may not know, but you're about to get to know. Jorge Contreras. This guy is super cool. He's got a lot of different tools that he's going to share with us today and how he invests in real estate, and not just multifamily, but a bunch of different aspects of real estate. He's also a coach and a super cool guy. We were just talking a little bit offline. And before I get into it, I'm going to bring him on so he can introduce himself. Jorge, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Nico. I appreciate the opportunity. Excited to be here with your community and share some golden nuggets that'll create some paradigm shifts and change some lives.
Oh, I love it, man. We're going to start off like that. Yes. Okay. Let's do a favor for the audience. Let's give them a little bit of a background story about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I started my first business back when I was 15 years ago. I was actually a professional dancer. I was teaching Latin dance all over the world. I used to run a nightclub, do concerts, put on like big festivals with thousands of people every 6 months for almost a decade. And then in 2012, I had an experience that was like a turning point where I had a herniated disc in my L5S1. Turns out I have to get a back surgery. Doctor says it's a 50-50 chance I'll ever walk again. And I knew I was going to be fine, but it just made me ask different questions. They say that if you ask better questions, you get better answers. So I started asking myself, like, how do I make money without using my body? Even though I knew I was going to be fine after the surgery, how do I make money without working so hard? And that led me down the real estate path. I started buying single family homes in 2012. I own a portfolio mostly by myself, probably up close to 8 figures. A portfolio of 18 short-term rentals, which has been my main focus since 2017. Started a coaching business, teaching other people how to create financial freedom through short-term rentals, whether they're buying, doing arbitrage, or a management company. We've had over 3,000 students, and yeah, I'm just really passionate about putting content out there that inspires and transforms lives.
Dude, that sounds really epic. You know, it's funny, not funny, but I was having this very similar conversation with somebody recently about using your own physical body, relying on it for income, because in the summertime, I teach surfing at a special needs camp.
Wow.
And there's always little nagging injuries, but if you rely on that, forget it, man. I mean, you get an injury, that's it, you're out. So
Yeah, for sure,
interesting.
man. And if you think about it, that's most people, right? Most people like use their hands in order to make money, whether it's, I don't know, construction or whatever it is. It's like they have to use their body physically. And I feel like we can leverage our creativity, our mind in more creative ways to create, more abundance.
Absolutely, man. I love it. And tell me a little bit more about why real estate, and then maybe why Airbnb, and how you got into that.
Sure. So my last job before I started that dance business when I was 20 is I worked at Bank of America, and I was a personal banker. So I was opening up personal checking accounts, business checking accounts. That's how I learned about LLCs, corporations, and all the different, asset protection structures. But at the time, we used to do the mortgage loans in-house. So if people wanted to purchase, refi, get a HELOC, I did all that. And so I would, help all these investors who were very wealthy, who had like a lot of money back then. And a lot of them were real estate investors. So, but at the time, I felt like real estate was this out of this world thing that was very like unattainable until I, bought my first house in 2012. And I wanted to get more into real estate, but I didn't know how to get my second property. I just knew how to use that FHA loan for the first one. So I invested into coaching. I joined the Rich Dad Education Company back in August of 2015. And that's what completely changed my life. I had a mentor that was my one-on-one coach who was a multimillionaire, and I was a part of their group education for 2 years. And that's really what, catapulted me to the next level. So, plus, of course, there's a lot of deductions being a business owner, and even more deductions being a real estate investor, and even more deductions when you incorporate short-term rentals, because, you offset active income from short-term rentals with W-2s, with other active income. So it's just been really powerful to be able to do like all the cost seg stuff with short-term rentals that I own. And I literally don't pay federal taxes anymore. I only pay state taxes because I live in the beautiful state of California.
Wow, man, that's so cool. And I forgot, sorry, my dog is barking. I forgot to mention that, dancing is awesome. I love that, by the way. And there's another person that I'm connected with as well, but he's on the West Coast. I think he's up north though. Robert Liu, who's also a professional dancer. Before we move on, I got to know, what was your like I mean, you mentioned Latin dance. There's a lot of type of Latin dance. Like, what was your specialty?
Yeah, it was bachata.
Oh, bachata, cool, man.
Yep.
Awesome. Fun stuff. So you can get a party going, huh?
Oh, absolutely. That was what I would live and breathe, have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for about 10 years of my life.
Cool, Jorge. All right, so back to the real estate stuff. I didn't even know that Rich Dad Poor Dad did like a coaching program.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, at one point they were the largest and only publicly traded company in the real estate education field. And Rich Dad, like Robert Kiyosaki, was basically like just the face of it, but obviously other people, I think he was just licensing his name and his brand and credibility. But the company was Legacy Education that did this collaboration with him. And yeah, they would do these 3-day weekenders for like a couple $100, and then they would pitch, 12 to $35,000 coaching programs, and it worked for me.
that's great, man. Yeah, you seem very successful. Now, where is the majority of your portfolio? I think you might have mentioned it, but just in case
Yeah,
people
it's
missed it.
all in Southern California. We're like in 6 different cities, and really focusing even more in the city of Los Angeles, especially as we're now venturing into more development and multifamily stuff. But all the short-term rentals, we're about 6, 7 different cities here in SoCal.
All right. So aside from short-term rentals, and you said you're also doing multifamily and development. How is that going? Or talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, those are definitely new, right? Like I said, I've been doing single family since 2012. A lot of ADUs, split home, doing house hacking, all that stuff. And then I started doing the Airbnbs in 2017. And just this year started venturing into the development and multifamily. So we have our first 10-unit apartment building in escrow right now as we speak. We'll be closing in October. And then we have 3 ground up developments that all started this year as well. And then I partnered with one of my good friends that I've known for 15 years. He worked for some of the biggest real estate and construction firms here in LA. And while working for them for over a decade, he did like 1.6 billion in ground up projects that he would execute from A to Z, from just RTI to managing the construction teams to exits. Like, he did everything. He just never did it for himself. So as I bring in a little bit more of that risk taker, extrovert, like, hey, we could do this stuff ourselves and raise the money. This is a new venture that we're now, going into.
Really cool, Jorge. Now, I'm going to take this piece by piece. So the multifamily, the 10 unit, is that going to be traditional long-term rentals, or are you going to use them as
Yeah,
short-term rentals as
it'll
well?
be traditional long-term rentals.
Cool. And is that with a team, or how do
Yeah,
you,
there's 3 GPs in that project, and it'll be a syndication structure.
is it a 506B or 506C
B.
syndication? Okay. I just want to know kind of like price per door, just to have my bearings, because I'm in New York. I know price per door is pretty high
Yeah.
here. What is it over
Yeah,
there?
we are in escrow at 2.59, so like 2.6. So is that 260? About 260 a door?
Okay, not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
Cool. And now for the ground up development, I don't feel any way, this isn't coming from me personally, but there are conversations out there that it's risky, right? And maybe you could
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's no, I believe it is risky. Honestly, my partner's the one that's been doing that for over a decade. It was his idea initially. And I was like, you know what? This sounds like a good idea. And so the good thing is one of the projects is already like 90% funded. And then the other ones are newer. One we closed escrow about maybe 7 weeks ago. We're just starting. We got a webinar coming up at the end of this month. But for sure, as I analyze just everything that we're doing, I feel that the best thing you could do is buy an existing business that you can improve and then exit at some point. And that's existing, multifamily. I'm much more of a fan, even just with a little bit of experience that I have with the ground up. There's like no cash flow. It's a little more challenging to even just get the financing. It's harder to raise capital. It is risky. And I feel like right now is not a good time to be taking on that much risk.
With risk, though, there is reward. So are the returns different?
For sure. I mean, these three of the projects, one is a 3-unit, there's a 5 and then a 6-unit, and all of them have a 900,000 to 1.2 exit each. And there's anywhere from on one project, there's two partners, just me and my partner. And then on the other two, there's 4 of us in total. So we're all walking away with probably $250,000 to 300,000 each for about,
cool.
We anticipate about 22 months of work from start to finish. One of them we're keeping for sure. The one it's just me and my partner. The other 2 will most likely sell. So the good thing is there's some really big margins in there and the comps are there. But I still think, again, it's still more risky, but yes, risk reward ratio. But there's a lot of uncertainty, I feel like, in a lot of stuff today. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for someone, especially if they're just like getting started. I think it's a lot of work, and I'm getting some gray hairs. My beard's getting gentrified.
I got every color in mine. I got black, I got gray. My mom was a redhead. I got that in there too, and blonde. I got it all. So, you know what's funny, but I think that you're doing it right, man. I mean, you have a lot of experience in real estate in general, and now you're just adding on small. You're not doing huge development properties, which is a great way to get into it. I'm very interested in development as well.
Yeah, no, it is exciting, and like I said, it's exciting to have that big of an exit because like one of our partners has done over like 100 flips, and he's like, man, I would have worked so hard just to make like 40K. He's like, to walk away with like $250,000 or over 300,000 from one project. He's like, that's going to be like a nice payday, right? But I've never been a flipper or a wholesaler. I've always been a buy and hold guy. I like the cash flow, appreciation, depreciation, all the cost sake stuff. Man, that's where I live. That's where I love being. So I'm really looking forward to for sure holding one of those projects, and we will hold on to that, multifamily for that 3 to 5 year period until we realize our returns.
Cool. Now with maybe you can kind of give us some tips. The majority of my listeners dabble in Airbnb. None of them are professionals, or maybe a few of them are. Maybe you can give us some tips with Airbnb, meaning like how to finance, how to furnish, what to look for,
Yeah. I know you mentioned you have a lot of like people who are getting into real estate, and most of my audience is the same way. I cater to 9-to-5ers who are just sick and tired of the 9-to-5 grind. They want to start building a second stream of income that can hopefully one day be able to replace your 9-to-5, get out of the rat race. And so I do have a lot of students that start with purchasing, and I always recommend that when the finances make sense for them, since that's where you create long-term wealth. But I do have a big percentage of my students, a larger percentage of my students, I should say, who are not in a position to buy. And they're like, Jorge, I want to start, but I don't have the down payment. What can I do? And these are mostly people who are not even homeowners, right? They're renters. They got decent credit. They got some money, but not over 100K. And so many of them will start with a strategy. I'm sure you've heard of it, like Airbnb Arbitrage, right? So they'll rent properties from owners. They get permission in writing to rent it and re-rent it as a short-term rental. And it's almost like, they're renting it at $3,000. And if they make $6,000 after paying utilities, cleaning, rent, they might end up with, $1,500 to $2,500 a month of cash flow. So it's really good cash flow, but it's obviously more work than a long-term. There's going to be 4 to 8 cleanings a month. So now you got to really put on your entrepreneur hat, learn how to build a team and a system, and create some automation so that it can be more of a hands-off experience, but you can still have more cash flow. So many of them will start with that strategy. And then once they have 3 of those and they can replace their 9-to-5, then they start going into the purchasing. So many of my students we teach them how to leverage 0% business credit cards as well as 0% personal credit cards. This is something I used to do at the bank when I worked there, and they have the ability with specific cards to transfer the availability from the credit card into their checking account. And then they use that for, to pay the first month's rent, the deposit, furniture, then use the cash flows from the Airbnb to then pay off the credit card. So I really try to plant the seed of like, man, you got to master how to use OPM, because if you keep launching just with your own money, you're going to run out of money pretty soon, and then you're not going to be able to keep growing. So all major successful businesses, entrepreneurs leverage other people's money, other people's resources, other people's time. Like, that's how you get to the top. So
Man, I love it. And I'm actually going to ask you a question for me personally. I'm being selfish here. I'm building an apartment upstairs in my house, and I'm gonna do it as long-term rentals. It says that, we're not allowed to have Airbnb here where I live in this town. So what happens then? I just can't do it?
pretty much, if a city says that they're banned, I've seen a lot of cities where they will issue fines, but I don't even know how to explain it, but they're not able to often collect the money on those fines. Again, I'm not sure why. It's like this really weird, I don't know. So usually if a city says, hey, we banned Airbnbs, or they already capped the amount, like here in Anaheim, California, next to Disneyland, they capped the amount of permits, I think in 2017. So anyone before that, they got one. After that, you couldn't get one, and they're not transferable. So we only launch in areas where we can get a permit, because obviously we want the business to operate for multiple years. We don't want it to be short-lived where we got to shut it down, and then all that time, energy, and resources, blood, sweat, and tears just kind of goes down the drain. The other option, if you can't do short-term rentals, is to do a midterm rental. I think that if you're near, highways and hospitals and airports and things like that, you could focus on traveling nurses, people in the medical field, corporate housing, relocation companies that relocate families when there's some type of damage to someone's home. And I feel like that's somewhere in between short-term rentals and long-term rentals. Like you could make more than long-term, but less than short-term, and it'll be somewhere in the middle as far as work, as far as the amount of work, because you're going to have bookings that are for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days at a time. So it's sort of like that happy medium. But personally, I don't launch in areas where they don't issue permits.
Cool. I'm really, really glad we're having this conversation. You're sparking my brain cells right now. I'm getting excited. I didn't know you needed a permit. Okay, cool. Now I know.
Yeah.
How do you price like an Airbnb? If there are hotels around, do you like same price, or how? Maybe it's like you kind of want to come in a little lower. I don't know.
Yeah. I have a really, like, I'll tell you my business model is, well, I'll tell you the pricing and then the business model so that it can make sense. So we want to be able to break even at 10 days of bookings. So if your rent or mortgage or whatever the fair market rent, because if you put a really low down payment, then obviously your mortgage is going to be high with these 7.5% interest rates. But whatever the fair market rent is, let's say that fair market rent is like 3,000, then your goal should be to make 6,000 a month, so that after all expenses, you net at least 2K. So if your fair market rent is 3,000, you want to be able to charge about 300 a night, so that you break even at 10 days, double at 20 days, and have the potential on your best months, on the peak months, to triple whatever your fair market rent is. Now, in order to be able to do that, my business model is I focus on single family homes that are near large population, like dense areas like Los Angeles, or mainly in Los Angeles, right? Near the theme parks, near the downtowns, near Universals, near Disneyland, as close as possible, but not, as long as it's within air. Like, what happens is, since you can't do Airbnb in Anaheim, at least any new ones, then it's like, okay, well, what's the next closest cities where they do issue permits? And then that is a great opportunity there. And so as long as I focus on single family homes where I could host 8 to 12 people, and we always put amenities in the property. Like if it has a pool, that's like one of the best amenities. If it doesn't have a pool, I'll add a jacuzzi, I'll add a game room, like a pool table, foosball table, arcades, things like that. So now I'm creating a staycation experience where people will book my home just because they can have a good time for the weekend. Or because I'm in a great location, like near the downtowns or beaches or theme parks, people will always book my property because of proximity. They're not going to spend that much time, but they're going to like an event, a conference, a wedding, and they just need somewhere to stay. So when you combine those two things with hosting these larger groups of people, it makes it pretty easy to charge 300, 400, 500 a night, because 8 to 12 people are going to pay over $1,000 at a hotel where they got to get multiple rooms and they're going to be separated. So I feel like the money part has to like really make sense for somebody to stay at your Airbnb. So I feel like the days of people just having like a unit in a secondary city away from the main, away from the downtowns, away from the theme parks, and with no amenities, I feel like those days are over. I feel like a lot of those Airbnbs are struggling, but the ones that are like what I just described, those are like thriving even in today's market.
Dude, this is sick. I'm loving this conversation. So, to talk about amenities, and I was going to ask that question specifically. You mentioned, a pool, and if not, then maybe you'll throw a jacuzzi in there or a pool table or something like that. What about inside? Like, is there any simple things, maybe even a color scheme or like air fresheners? I don't know, some simple things that people can do.
Inside, like other than amenities?
Yeah, like how do
Yeah,
you? Yeah,
for sure. I think again, I think of the main reason people stay at Airbnbs, right, is the proximity, like the location, or to have an experience in the home without actually having to go somewhere. So smaller things that you can do that don't include like the pool, the jacuzzi, is some of like just board games and even card games like the Monopolies and the Unos. Got the cash flow game here, things like that where people can, be entertained. I feel like those types of experiences go a long way. And depending on the type, like the city and the area, some areas some Airbnbs will do well. Like if you add like some yoga mats or even like a little gym area, I have a sauna at one of my properties, a Tesla chargers, all these different amenities. Like nowadays, so many, Tesla vehicles, electric cars, right? So we are definitely playing a game of whoever has the most and best amenities is going to get the bookings.
so cool, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, now talk a little bit about cleaning fees and how, like, does I guess after every person leaves, you got to clean it.
Yeah, there's going to be about 4 to 8 cleanings per month. And usually we have a pretty simple model as far as the cleaning fee. So we'll charge about $25 per bedroom, bathroom, and living space. So if it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, plus the living room, that's like 6 times 25 is like 150. But the fact that we're in California and everything's more expensive here, it needs to be like, for us, it looks more like 250. Like we just launched a brand new Airbnb this morning that we're managing for someone else. And it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath. And sure enough, that one we're charging 250 for. And it's just a pass-through cost. So like we collect that fee from the guest and it goes straight to our cleaning crew. And we usually, hire cleaning crews on like Thumbtack, Yelp, social media, word of mouth. But I never hire like big companies. I always hire like a person that I work with directly. I want the same person that's going to show up, each and every day that the property needs to be cleaned, just for like consistency purposes. And then, yeah, I guess for anybody who's, kind of new out there to business, right, we always do a 1099 because nowadays, if you don't get them to sign that form, you can't use it as a tax deduction anytime you pay $600 or more in a calendar year. So we always make sure they have either a social security or a tax ID number or EIN, something where we could, be able to utilize that deduction.
Wow, man, this is jam packed. This episode, thank you.
Of course.
This is great, man. And do you use a property management team or do you manage everything?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that question. I decided to actually build a team in-house. I'm a big fan of, vertically integrating. I wanted to keep my costs low, right? Like any business owner. I wanted to, really be able to have speed, because sometimes you submit, hey, there's a maintenance issue. And it's like, oh, let me create a ticket and escalate it. And it'll take 3 business days. It's like, nah, my team's like driving there as soon as we call them or send them a text. So yeah, and more than anything, like also the control, right? Being able to control things. So I built an in-house management team that, manages my portfolio, and that person is like full-time. So like I said, it gives me all those things: speed, control, keeps my costs low. And I feel like this is really the way to go, especially if you plan on growing your portfolio to like 5, 10, 15. I have 18 Airbnbs. And yeah, I couldn't imagine paying 20% to a management company. I mean, that would be like 2/3 of my profit. We operate like at a 28, 30% net profit. So if I pay somebody 20, 25%, it's like, man, there's no profit. I'm doing this for a hobby. So by having an in-house management, man, my costs are extremely low compared to outsourcing it.
Awesome, man. Is it a VA or is it somebody local?
Yeah, I actually hired my best friend who wanted to get into the Airbnb business. And I've always been a big believer in, hire for attitude and train for scale. It's easier to train to scale than it is to train the attitude. So, my best friend, I've known him for like 23 years, 22 years. He's a perfectionist, really good with people, attention to detail, hands-on. He's like singles, got no kids. And he does have a regular 9 to 5 where he works a 4-10 shift. So he's off Saturdays, Sundays, and Tuesdays, but he's like a security guard, and it's really easy for him to be on his phone. So he's on his phone the whole day, managing the Airbnbs, taking phone calls. And as long as he's there, kind of protecting the area, like he can pretty much have the flexibility to do whatever he wants. And so it just works out really good. But like I said, he had all the personality traits, and I'm like, all right, today he's not a great manager, but I'm going to focus so much on training him that 6 months from now, he'll be a better manager than I ever could be, And yeah, it's been about maybe, I think he started in May of 2021. So we're coming up on 2.5 years, and he's doing an excellent job. And yeah, manages a portfolio, gives me a, complete hands-off experience, and it's working out really good.
Jorge, man, that's a great thing you're doing and a great philosophy to have. So you're crushing it, man. We're gonna shift gears a little bit. Maybe you can talk before we get out of here. I know I'm kind of getting
Sure.
over time here, but maybe you can talk a little bit about your coaching business.
Sure. Yeah. People always say like, hey, Jorge, why do you do coaching? Or, if it makes so much money, why don't you just do those and not coach people? But I remember when like 18 months after the Rich Dad program, we were already like halfway to our net worth exceeding $1 million. And within 18 months of joining the mentorship, started, acquiring a lot more rentals and more units. And obviously there's a lot of appreciation in California. And yeah, within 18 months of the Rich Dad, our net worth exceeded $1 million. I remember I felt like $1 million for 3 days. And then after 3 days, I just felt like the sense of like emptiness, right? It was like, wow, I did all that, but now I feel like unfulfilled. And I just got like this message from the universe that said like, go and help other people. And that's exciting. I love it when, I speak to, and maybe it's because me and my wife are young parents. We have 2 kids that are 1 and 4. So I think we attract a lot of young parents or people that see themselves having kids at some time, and they want to spend more time with their kids. I'm not a flashy guy. I'm not into like the Lambos and the Ferraris and all that stuff. I'm more like just really about the freedom, the lifestyle, traveling, being able to homeschool our kids and live life on our terms. And I attract a lot of people that aspire to live a life that way. And it's just awesome to share everything, not just the strategies, the principles, but the mindset, the personal development, like how to work together as a team. And so, yeah, it's just really exciting. So yeah, we teach people on purchasing, subleasing, starting a management company, the asset protection, the tax side, not just how to make the money, but how to keep the money, protect the money, and full circle.
Oh man, Jorge, that's awesome. Anytime you can give back, it's probably the most fulfilling thing that we have as people and in society. So thank you for that. So I know that people are going to want to reach out to you, and I want to get them some form of contact. However, right before that, I'm going to ask you my final question. We'll get that, and then we'll go to that to the way that somebody can reach out to you and get in touch with you. So here's my question. Let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You have great grandchildren now, and they wanted to write a book about you. What would you want them to title this book?
I would title it Breaking Through. Right. This is my Amazon bestseller. It's a mindset book. I always say that this is the book that picks up where Rich Dad left off. And the reason for the title is I believe that one of the reasons most people feel stuck, and we all experience that, right, including myself, is we often start living our lives, especially into our adulthood, in the same way that like our parents live their lives. And then they live their lives because that's how their grandparents did it. And all these beliefs about whether it's your health, relationships, finances, like we're just always repeating the patterns without ever really questioning why we live that way. And one of the things that I've become really good at is questioning everything. And then instead of following those same traditions or patterns, I've created my own way of life between, me and my wife. And so we really have had to break through certain like limiting beliefs, certain ways that keep you from becoming the best version of yourself. And I feel like life is ultimately about breaking through in order to, like the example that I love is Ed Milet. He has this belief that when he dies, he's going to meet the greatest version of himself. And his goal in life is that when he meets the greatest version of himself, they are so identical that you can't tell them apart. And to him, failure is meeting that person and being completely different. And in order to do that, you have to break through.
Yes, Jorge, this is sick. So I'm just gonna add a little bit to this because I had a special day today. I actually had a really special day. Early this morning, I didn't want to get out there in the ocean. I teach surfing in the summertime, and I didn't want to do it. My body is beat. I'm shot, and my best friend who passed away 11 years ago, his sister was in town and she had her kids. They don't come very often, and she wanted me to take her kids, and I begrudgingly did it, but ended up being such a beautiful day. It was raining out earlier, and that's why I didn't want to go. The wind was whipping, but I did it, and it became a beautiful day. And at the same time, I found a little jar with messages in a bottle on the beach. I've never found anything like this before, and it was really cool. And we all took out little notes and read them, and it was really fun. That happened, and then today was also special because I met up with my acupuncturist who over 3 years ago he started treating me and healing me from a lot of different crazy stuff, and we really built a bond and a connection. And then he went to Mexico for 2.5 years, and he came back a few days ago, and
Wow.
Today was my first session with him, and we had a crazy experience. So
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing, man. Congratulations to you,
Thank
Nico.
you.
That's amazing.
Thank you, man. All right, let's rock. So how can people reach out to you, Jorge? I know they're going to want to get in touch
Sure.
with you.
Yeah, best way is reach out to me on Instagram. My handle is @ and then the THE Jorge Contreras.
Boom. Thank you so much, man. I'm gonna get it right now.
Yeah, let me follow you as well there.
Cool. Well, Jorge, it's been an honor and a pleasure hanging out with you today. I really had a fun time listening to you, and I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm and your knowledge and wisdom. So thank you for doing what you do, man.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on here. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right. Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of my podcast where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you liked what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you would subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. Also, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website at smalaxecommunities.com. Book a call with me. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.